God'll get you for that one.
Maude is owned by Shout Factory.
God'll Get You for That, Walter, is produced for entertainment purposes only.
Sponsored in part by Findley's Friendly Appliances.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter.
Which we are actually recording.
Which we are now recording.
After a false start.
Tony looks at the monitor, the computer screen, and it's like, why are we flatlining? Why are there no spikes? Well, that was because my microphone wasn't on.
You didn't put the microphone. Good thing we realized it before
we recorded the entire episode.
The whole episode, yes.
That would have been awful.
That would not have been fun.
It would be like, taking pictures of something and having the cap on the lens.
Yes. Or the thumb in front.
Or the thumb in front of the flash.
Or no film in the camera.
Or no film in the camera. People these days have no idea what we're talking about.
No.
But this was a thing years
was a thing.
ago.
It was a thing.
Before digital.
Yes.
So welcome to God'll Get You for That, Walter, a podcast where we discuss the 1970s hit sitcom Maude. And today is our episode 71, and we're discussing season 3, episode 23, Maude's Mother.
Maude's Mother.
Which aired originally March 31st, 1975, and it's the season 3 closer. And it stars, the usual suspects: Adrienne Barbeau, B. Arthur, Conrad Bain, Hermione Badley. There was no Vivian. There was no Vivian, but Conrad Bain was on.
He made a quick run in and run out.
Yeah, which is traditional for Arthur. But we have some guest stars. We have Audrey Christie, who is Mother. Otherwise, in the cast list, it's Mother, but her name is Florence Chadwell.
Yes.
We have Kay Dingle, who was Lorraine, and Archie Hahn as Mr. Carmichael. And, of course, it was written by Norman Lear, Bud Grossman, Elliot Shainman, and, as always, directed by Hal Cooper.
Of course.
What'd you think?
It was a cute episode.
I was underwhelmed.
Yeah, it wasn't... I
remember the first time I watched it, and I was just I was expecting, Maude's mother to be played by, Eve Arden, or someone that was taller with a...
Well, Eve Arden was probably too much of a contemporary of B. Arthur.
Probably,
to be the mother.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So...
I think they have her as her aunt in a later episode.
Oh, do they?
I think in, season 5 or season 6. No, I think it's season 5 they have her, because Mrs. Nogatuk is still with us.
Okay.
So, yeah... But I was just expecting more from the episode, I guess.
Yeah, it was sort of like, you've been sort of led to believe that Maude was kind of like her mother was very Maude-like.
Yeah.
And the character of the mother that we saw was, like you said, a little underwhelming.
A little underwhelming.
Yeah, you didn't really quite get the feeling.
I didn't get the feeling that was the mother.
Yeah,
we'll get into that. The episode opens
at Findley's Friendly Appliances.
At Findley's Friendly Appliances, and we have Walter, who's in a panicked state, and we have Mr. Carmichael, who's saying that the commercial for Findley's Friendly Appliances. The commercial for it is a hit. It's boom. It's not.
Well, it hasn't been on yet. This was.
It hasn't aired. They're going to
watch the premiere.
They're getting ready to watch the premiere of the commercial.
And it was Mr. Carmichael, right?
Mr. Carmichael.
And apparently he had previously worked with the toupee king of
Leo Marcioni, the toupee king of Tuckahoe.
Yes, I guess he did his commercial.
I suppose so. I'd like to see that commercial.
Yeah,
more than I'd like to see the one for Findley.
Really. So apparently, we find out that Walter made 2 different commercials.
Yes, we find out at the end that Walter did 2 different commercials.
Yes,
but
and he decided. I think they said the one that they're actually showing is the more dignified one.
Yes.
Which dignified is an interesting
That's a word.
an interesting term
It's a word to use.
for it. And and Mr. Carmichael keeps calling Walter Wally Baby.
Yes, which I mean, I guess that was. I don't know how advertising agencies work now, but I have never heard somebody referred to me as Tommy Baby.
No.
And if they did, I would have to say, please don't refer to me in that.
I know, right? Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't know because I'm not an ad agent. I'm just an actor. Mm-hmm.
So Walter now, he's trying to call Maude.
Yes.
To tell her that the commercial's going to be coming on.
Yep. And of course, the phone is tied up, but we find out why a little later on in the episode.
Later, yes.
So the commercial starts, and I want to point out...
And Walter mentioned that, Maude's mother is flying out from Boston.
Which is why, that's why he said Maude is probably out alarming the neighborhood.
Exactly. That's why he thought the phone was busy.
But Kay Dingle.
Oh, Kay Dingle.
What an interesting character
Yes.
actress. I'm very curious to know what else she's been in.
Can you pull up what she's been in? Because I'm sure there was many. She looked very familiar, but I couldn't quite place it.
They both looked like, very, very typical
character actors from that time period.
Oh, she died December 2020. So she died recently.
Yeah, it's only recently.
So let's see. Mr. Mom, she was a woman in the crowd.
Okay.
Love at First Bite, she was a TW agent.
Okay.
As Ding Dingle.
Ding
Dingle.
Ding Dingle. Okay.
The World's Greatest Lover, she was the young woman on the train.
Oh, The World's Greatest Lover. I remember that movie, but...
And she was in Maude.
Yes, and that's it. No, there's got to be...
No.
Oh,
the Paper Chase.
Mr. Mom.
Give me a break. Love at First Bite. The World's Greatest Lover. Mary
Hardman.
Hardman. Who wasn't on Mary Hardman?
Everyone was, yes. The Nancy Walker Show.
Grady, the Bob Crane Show, Mac Davis, Good Times,
Happy Days,
and that was it.
Oh, that was it. I would have thought she had a lot more
because she has a very distinct look and voice about her.
That's interesting. I would have thought she had done a lot more stuff.
Same. And Mr. Carmichael, because you had mentioned before we started recording, he looked very familiar.
Very familiar, yes. And what was that actor's name?
Archie Hahn.
Archie Hahn.
Small Soldiers, 1988.
What is he known for?
Satellite Dish Installer. Born to Kibitz with Eddie Slater. Shiner, All the Creatures Were Stirring. Born to Kibitz. A Turtle's Tale. Sammy's Adventures. Of course, he was additional voices for that.
It looks like he's done a lot of voice.
Yeah, a lot of voice work. Fly Me to the Moon. Mr. Woodcock.
Mm-hmm.
Barnyard, John Tucker Must Die. Mm-hmm. Teacher in Thong number 2. Of A Storied Career. Oh. Chicken Little, additional voices. Racing Stripes, Looney Tunes Back in Action. So he was in some things.
Yes. And is he still alive? Or
I don't know.
What does it say?
It says... he has not passed. He's still with us.
I guess he's still with us.
November 1st, 1941 was when he was born, and he has been married to Carol Larkin since May 2014. So he must have been young on Maude.
Yeah.
Or he married older.
Well, no, in the 40s, he was born in the 41.
He was born in 41,
in his
so
30s
he's
when he did Maude.
He was in his 30s when he did Maude. So that would make him 80.
Right.
That would make him 80.
Yeah.
Webster. He was in Webster. Mm-hmm. Madam's Place.
Oh, Madam's
He played
Place.
Roger.
Okay, so he did a lot of things.
Laverne and Shirley. I mean, storied
yes.
history.
Yes. Yeah, I knew he looked familiar.
Bob Newhart. That was another one.
Oh, Bob Newhart. I love the Bob Newhart show.
Oh. So, actors. And to those that don't know, Audrey Christie and B. Arthur had actually worked prior to Maude.
Oh, they did?
They did.
On what?
Mame.
Oh, okay.
That was the wife of...
Okay, so that's why we
That's
have
probably
that
why
thing,
we have that connection.
That little, we'll get to it when they're discussing hair.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a nod.
More than likely.
It had to be a nod. We'll get to that.
Yes.
All right. So
we'll have that moment.
I think at that point we start seeing the commercial.
Yes.
And it's like this big close up of Walter's face.
And he has this weasel-like smile on his face.
It was so cheesy.
It was so cheesy.
It was so typical of that kind of
So
commercials
typical
of that area, like
regional,
yes.
local commercials.
It may remind me of like Crazy Eddie commercials.
Oh my God!
We're practically giving it all away.
I mean, you even see those same commercials today. Like, you're approved, you're approved, you're approved. We get that one. What's the other one?
There was another one that's very, very local to the New York area. I don't know if you remember it. It was a takeoff of Crazy Eddie's. He was Meshuggah Joe. I don't know if you remember Meshuggah Joe.
I don't believe I was alive for Meshuggah Joe, no, but I do remember that being a thing.
It was a thing.
I do remember that.
Yes, Meshuggah Joe.
So one of the lines that really caught, there were a couple of lines that caught me. So we start with Wowie Wally.
Wowie Wally, yes.
So that is his new nickname apparently for the episode.
And we've got him
over a barrel.
Over a barrel.
And he's literally in
he's wearing a barrel.
Maybe you would know the answer to this question because I don't.
Yes.
Why did people go over Niagara Falls in a barrel?
Because it was there.
Okay.
It was a thing to do.
Understood.
It was a thing to do.
Bungee jumping hadn't been invented
fame.
yet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was, felt like it was a way to get fame.
Okay.
Like going over Niagara Falls
in a barrel.
Yeah.
So he says, I'm underfinanced and overstocked. And, he has all of these refrigerators that have got to go.
And what was the one brand?
Yoshimoto.
Yeah, made in America.
100% made in America.
Only the name was Japanese.
Oh, my God almighty. So the commercial's going on. He's selling. And then by the end, he has on this big grin on his face. And the camera zooms in on him and he says, God love ya. And you see Walter, he's filled with pride. He has that really goofy grin on his face.
And Lorraine is telling him, she kisses him, she's telling him he's sensational, and Mr. Carmichael is saying, I told you, Wally.
Yep.
And when Lorraine says you're going to be like a household name
like Drano. And the look on her face, with those teeth.
Oh, my. Yes,
those
she had
teeth.
like very horsey teeth.
Very horsey teeth.
Very horsey teeth. So at that point, we cut to back at the Findlays.
Back at the
Findlays' house.
Back at the Findlays'
and Maude is in the living room, dining room area, and Carol comes in, and she's saying, how was Walter's commercial?
Yep. And Maude says, the commercial hasn't aired yet. Right. It airs at 2:56, which coincidentally was our first hotel room when we started seeing each other. Right. It was really crummy.
Right.
So then she's like, well, when is you're going to go to pick up your mother? So we find out that Maude thinks in her mind that the plane arrives at 4:45.
Right.
So she said that she was going to leave at 3:59. Obviously, I think she was going to go pick up her mother at, I guess, LaGuardia or JFK.
Someplace like that.
Yes,
I'm sure.
And, while Maude is going over this, she's rubbing her neck.
Yes.
Why is she rubbing her
Because
neck?
she's nervous.
Why is she nervous?
Because her mother is always making her feel guilty. And Maude is saying, she was saying how she'll have her saying, sorry.
2 seconds after she walks in the door.
Yeah, sorry this, sorry that.
Yep. And she says it's all guilt. It's motheritis. Motheritis.
Yeah, it's all guilt.
And of course, as Maude says motheritis, Carol says, yeah, like you give me sometimes.
Yes. And Maude points out that, it starts from the moment you're born, when the doctor
holds you by your ankle, slaps you on the behind, and says, see, that's what you did. That's what you get for what you just did to your mother.
That's right.
So Carol's like,
that makes me think of when we do Dorothy and Sophia. And I'm telling people that I was in labor with you for 35 days.
35 days.
And honestly, because we just did that. We just did the nursing home.
Yes,
show.
we just did a nursing home
And when
show.
I did that little bit, they were hysterical.
Yes, they were.
They really were.
They really were.
They were really laughing at that.
It was a funny joke. It's a funny joke.
It was.
I'm not disagreeable when I say this. When you are Sophia, you are honestly at your funniest.
Yes, true. Truly. It's a sickness.
Because you can get away with saying anything. You can say anything.
You really can.
Some of the things, again, even take me by surprise, and I'm your scene partner, and I'm like, oh my God, how the hell am I going to give it back to him for this?
Sometimes they take me by surprise.
Yes, they do.
It really does. I mean, my Sophia persona is so different from my
the Toni Homeperm
persona.
Very much so.
It really is.
It's startling.
It really it's scary.
It is.
It's scary. It scares me. It should scare you.
It does. as your daughter, it does. I promise you.
So now Carol is asking her. Maude, did she check the time? Is she sure about the time?
And of course, Maude is like, if there's one thing I pride my on, it is timing. The only time I mixed up my time was
while you're here.
Yeah. Which I think the one time I mixed up my time.
Made a mistake is why you're here.
While you're here.
And she's saying, she's saying, and I have it written right down here.
I have it written right down here.
The flight information.
Flight is 4:45, arriving at 2:56. Oh my God! And before we even hear the doorbell ring, she goes, "I'm sorry, Mother," which is a new record because she had her, saying "I'm sorry, Mother" 2 seconds before she opened the door.
Exactly. And it's at that point that Maude's mother comes in.
Yes.
And she's a very striking woman, very red hair.
Red hair.
Mm-hmm.
Very red hair.
Yes.
And she was in, I forget what color suit she was in.
I forget. I remember the caftan.
Oh, we always will remember the caftan.
Beautiful caftan.
But she was in a suit. She had gloves on. She had a shawl.
Back in the day, when you got on a flight for the airplane, the men were all in suits, women were in very
Sunday best,
gloves, a hat, all this. It was like
it was an event.
You didn't have people in flip flops and pajama bottoms and
I mean, when I fly, I usually am just in. I don't want to say I'm conservatively dressed, but I'm in my jeans. I'm in whatever I'm in until I get to the hotel room, and then when I get to the hotel room is when I get all done up.
Yes. So Maude and her mother, they're hugging, and Maude's mother, we will call Florence because that's her name.
Her name is Florence.
Florence is hugging her, and she's like,
"Oh, my darling little girl, my dear sweet tardy little girl."
Yes.
And of course, just sticking it in and turning the knife.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is a mother to do?
That's fair.
Someday you'll have your own daughter to do this too.
Please, I have more than enough children that I know what to do with.
Yeah, really.
Ugh.
So Maude is begging forgiveness. She said she mixed up the times.
She said, "I'm sorry, Mother. I'm sorry, Mother."
And Florence is saying she didn't mind that long, lonely
trip on the bus.
On the bus. Mm-hmm.
And again, just continuing to be the guilt-giving mother.
So then Carol is like, "Hello, Grandma," and Florence is like, "Oh, my beautiful granddaughter.
You are the picture of grace and elegance.
You remind me of me.
Oh, that satiny, soft complexion and those sparkling, exciting eyes, and really stacked.
Yes.
My grandmother would say something similar. I distinctly remember. I will never forget it as long as I live. We were at my uncle and aunt's kids' communion. It was either their communion or their confirmation, and they had it at this cute little bookstore in Dumbo, Brooklyn. And my grandmother was, of course, elegantly attired, and my sister, I think, was mouthing off to her. So my grandmother turns to her and goes, "Go stand on a street corner."
Oh.
And I lost it. I completely and totally lost it. Oh, God, I miss that woman.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, my goodness. So Carol says, "Oh, grandmother, it's great to see you. You're a great lady." And, at that point, Florence, in her dignity, says, "Oh, well, there are 4 qualities that all should have.
Right. There was
good manners, courage, and good old-fashioned Yankee conservatism."
And Maude, points out, well, that's only 3
That's
things.
only 3. What's the 4th? And, of course, Florence turns to Maude and says, "Punctuality." And, of course, Maude is holding her shoulder.
Right.
It's just saying, "I'm sorry, Maude."
Yes. So Carol, she exits. She says she's going to take the suitcase upstairs.
Yep, Philip's going to be home soon. He's excited to meet you.
Right. Which I was
excited to see you. Excited to see you.
Excited. Yeah, I was excited to see you. Right, because obviously she would have seen her.
Yeah,
great.
Obviously she would have seen her grandson
previously. So Maude is saying, "Well, here we are." She's saying that her mother looks wonderful.
Yeah, and then we come to a very interesting point in the episode,
where
Florence turns to Maude and goes, "Oh, I wish you would be like everyone else, and color your hair like me."
Yes.
And Maude is like, "Well, I decided to be natural like you,
which." As I said, that seemed to be a
callback,
a nod
to Mame.
Mame and Bosom Buddies, and you should wear your hair natural like mine.
If I kept my hair natural like yours, I'd be bald.
Exactly.
But, darling. She's here.
Yeah.
She's here with us.
Always here.
I'm, of course, referring to that queen from Queens.
Yes. Queen from Queens, who we can say anything about because she won't listen.
She won't listen to
She'll
this.
never hear it.
She'll never hear it. She won't ever hear it. We could say whatever the hell she wants.
It's not about her. She has no
exactly. She has no dog in this race. She has no dog in this show. She does not care.
Is it about me? No. I'm not interested.
Oh, we're evil.
We are. We're evil. So now Maude is she's telling her mother she can't wait for her to meet Walter.
Yep.
That she knows she's gonna love him.
Yep.
I think that at that point Walter comes in, right?
No,
no.
Even before that, they're going over their hair.
Maude asked her mother why didn't she call her?
Yes.
When she was stranded there at the airport,
Yep.
and she says, well, the phone was busy, and Maude's like, nobody's been on the phone.
So at that point, who should walk into the room but Mrs. Naugatuck on the phone,
from the
talking
kitchen,
to Bert,
like
from
with
the kitchen.
the cord stretched for all its
Yep.
life. And
remember corded telephones?
oh yes,
I don't miss those days.
oh yes, yeah. You had to figure out how far can I stretch?
How
the
far
line
can I
and the
stretch the
cord?
line?
And yeah, it was a thing.
Oh,
It was a
how
whole
times have changed.
You'd be on the phone with the cord stressed, and you might have cold cream on your face.
Yep. Your hair in curlers.
It was a thing. It was a thing.
It was.
Yes.
It was. So, Mrs. Naugatuck comes in. She's
Right.
like, I'm on the phone with Bet.
And she's telling him to hold on. She has to get her afternoon
tea.
Which she grabs a bottle of wine.
Which is a bottle of wine. And she pours a glass and she goes, here's looking at you, Bet. And then she goes...
No, so the Maude is...
Oh, no, she doesn't go. That's right.
Yeah, Maude is like... she says, Mrs. Naugatuck, I'd like you to meet my...
After you hang up and before I fire you.
meet my mother.
I want you to meet my mother. And, Florence goes, "Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you." And Mrs. Doggett goes, "It is?
It is.
And your daughter said you were hard to please." And, of course, that's a recurring joke in the show. A recurring joke in the episode.
Yes.
And Maude's like, "I never said that,
Never said
Mother."
that, yes.
So, at that point, Walter finally comes in.
Yes.
And, even before that, Florence goes upstairs, and there's a joke about her putting 1,000 miles on her face, and she needs to check. She needs to check and make sure.
She's got to put on. She said she's got to put on a new face.
It's due for a check.
And Maude was like, "There's nothing wrong with your face." And she said, "Well, she just traveled 1,000 miles, and that's she needs a checkup."
It's due for a checkup.
For a checkup.
I also she had this distinct transatlantic accent about her. Where I feel like, Maude is a classically trained actress. We acknowledge that. And, the mid-Atlantic, transatlantic voice was very popular in the 30s and 40s. You look at people like Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn. I'm trying to think of other people off the top of my head that had that sort of accent. Lauren Bacall. They have that very distinct accent about them, and it feels like Florence exaggerated that because she talked very proper, and her vowels were very low. Yeah. Just the way that she spoke, it almost felt like it was a caricature.
Like people like that they've had elocution lessons. And everything is like the rain in Spain stays mainly on the plain.
Mainly in the plain.
Yes, it's very much that way of speaking.
Little Rex Harrison and all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes upstairs, and Walter comes in, and he has a box in his hand.
Yes, and he's asking her if how she liked the commercial, if she saw the commercial.
And Maude is so apologetic. "I'm so sorry, I missed it."
When's it going to be on again? And he says it's going to be on in 3 minutes.
Yep.
Yes.
Which, that's average. To have a commercial play a couple of times a day just to get interest.
Yeah. I'm sure it was on local channel.
Local channels.
Local channels. Wasn't like...
Well, remember, kids, in the 70s, there were only 2 channels. 3 channels.
3
channels.
Well, you had your 3 channels, like here in the New York area. We had Channel 2, Channel 4, and Channel 7.
Yep.
And then there was Channel 9, Channel 11, and Channel 13.
Yes.
That was it.
That was it.
And
Channel 13, I think, was like PBS.
Yes, PBS.
Or it was, that was more for inner city stuffs. Mm-hmm. Which we acknowledge that. Sesame Street was all about being an inner city kid.
When it was first on.
When it was first on, yeah.
But basically that was it. And 5. Channel 5.
Channel 5.
Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, 9, 11, and 13. And that was it.
7 channels.
That was it. Yeah.
That is the barometer, kids.
And I was the remote.
Yes. Yep.
My parents told me to get up and change the channel.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
That's what it was.
I'm very grateful that I was born after that time period where remotes were a thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you still had the TV sets, obviously, where you had to change the channel manually.
Yes. Now, during this time period, Channel 2, CBS, which Maude was on,
yes,
they were basically the big network.
Mm-hmm.
They were much bigger than 4 and 7.
Well, 4 was NBC.
Yes.
And 7 was, I think, ABC.
Yes. NBC, they had, a lot of problems back in that era. There was, so many shows that they tried that failed. Things like Super Train, BJ and the Bear.
Oh, no.
There was so many bad shows.
Zorba the Greek.
Yeah, and Channel 7 really, I don't think they had anything that noteworthy until Happy Days took over. Happy Days.
Well, I mean, in the 50s and 60s, it was all variety shows.
Yes.
Because, in 50 50, 51, and 52, that was sort of like the death knell for radio programs.
Yeah.
Because at that point, a lot of like comedy actors and a lot of actors of note, like Groucho Marx and Eddie Cantor and Tallulah Bankhead and then Portland Hoffa and what was her husband's name? Fred Allen. Those actors of note, they all sort of migrated from radio to television.
Yes.
Some were successful,
Yes.
some were not so successful.
Yes, and in that period, you had a lot of those very family-oriented things, like Make Room for Daddy,
Make Room for
Father
Daddy.
Knows Best,
Leave it to Beaver.
Dennis the Menace
yes,
show,
yes,
Donna
yes.
Reed. Then CBS, they began their sort of like what was really big for them was Beverly Hillbillies.
Yes.
And that Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, these sort of like hillbilly-ish kind of comedies, which then got phased out by when All in the Family started. That changed the whole landscape of
course it
sitcoms.
did. Yep.
And then we had like All in the Family, Maude,
Good
the Jeffersons,
Times, the
Good
Jeffersons.
Times. Yes, but then ABC. They took over with things like Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Three's Company, The Love Boat, those kind of shows. And NBC languished for a long time until The Cosby Show and Cheers. And then, of course, it went into like things like
Wings,
Friends. I said Cheers. What else was there? Different Strokes, Facts of Life. All these the NBC sitcoms. Seinfeld too. Those sitcoms.
Seinfeld was NBC?
Seinfeld was NBC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So and all those.
I'm pretty sure Wings was NBC.
Yeah.
So it's a consistent evolution of comedy.
Yes. And what was Golden Girls?
Golden Girls was ABC.
It was ABC.
It was ABC.
Right.
The only reason I know that was because Disney, I think at the time, owned Buena Vista Entertainment, and I think Buena Vista was partnered with ABC. I'm pretty sure that was the case. But CBS bought Golden Palace. And that was one of the big turnoffs. Was it went from ABC to CBS.
I didn't remember that.
I think I have to our listeners, check my math. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Because Golden Girls was on ABC for 7 years, and then CBS, I think, bought the rights to Golden Palace. Because CBS, I think, was trying to cash on Golden Girls' fame.
Right.
So, yeah.
Didn't work out too well.
It did not work out too well. It only lasted, 13 episodes?
Yeah.
Not even?
Yeah.
And then Fox entered the fray with its comedies.
Yes. Very true. Married with Children.
That was
what their big Lynch.
And listen, that show has made them a mint.
Yeah,
that show has definitely made Fox Entertainment a mint.
Still on,
but now Fox Entertainment, I should say, not Fox News. Fox Entertainment is now owned by Disney. Which makes Peg Bundy a Disney princess.
Yes, interesting. Very interesting. But we digress.
That was a tangent. Yes. That was a tangent for the ages.
Tangent. All right, so Walter came in. He asked about the commercial.
Yep.
It's going to be on in 3 minutes.
Yep.
I think that's when Florence comes back down.
And she is in... Oh, no, she's not in. She's still in that suit.
Yes.
She doesn't get into the caftan until Arthur comes in.
Right. So he's saying, you must be Mother... What was her last name?
Mother Chadwell.
Mother Chadwell.
Chadwell.
Yes.
And, Maude was insisting, like, be charming.
Be charming,
Be charming.
Yes.
So she comes downstairs, and there's the big introduction. And
she tells Walter to call her Florence.
Yep.
And Walter's just like, charming. And he says to Florence that she looks more like Maude's sister. Which, of course...
Maude is a little annoyed by that. And she says, she's what did she say? I have it written down.
Oh, her hair was prematurely red.
Yes, prematurely red. It's her hair,
Yes,
prematurely.
yes.
That's the line. It's her hair, prematurely red.
And Walter says, Maude told him that she liked candy, and he has a box of candy for her. And she opens it up, and it's a chocolate
Easter
rabbit.
bunny.
Yeah.
It's an Easter bunny.
She's looking at it like this. It's this like,
It's a foreign substance.
Yes. And
because before she was like, "Oh, I'm sure Maude told you how I loved good candy."
Yes.
Getting that accent I think that was one of the things that turned me off about Florence was just that accent was so thick. So very thick.
So Walter said, they must have mixed up the boxes and somebody, swiped the sour balls.
And he called her Mom.
Mom, or did he call her mother? I thought he was calling her mother.
I thought I think he said Mom.
Oh.
And when I never called any of my partner's parents by that name. I've never called them father. I've never called them dad. I've never called them mom. I call them by their first name. I've never had the presence of mind to call anybody other than my own mother and of course you, mom or mom or mother.
Right.
That sort of again. It took me out of the episode for a second. I'm like, did he just call her mom? Okay.
So now they're getting ready to watch the commercial.
Yep,
it's going to be on in a second. Florence tells Maude that she's impressed.
Yes,
with Walter.
Yes,
And
Maude is like, oh, they could have gotten Henry Fonda, Laurence Olivier
to do the commercial. Yes,
but they decided on Walter.
Yes.
So the commercial starts.
And there we get Wowie Wally.
Yep. And as the commercial progresses, because they really wanted the focus to be on Walter, Maude, and Florence.
On their reactions.
And Florence is holding her face, and she's guffawing, she's cackling, and Maude is incensed. She is aghast. She is like holding her face in shame and cringing and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
So, obviously, the tagline goes, God love ya, which sends Florence into a laughing, just a laughing fit. Thank you, a laughing fit.
So Walter, he says, Mother Chadburn, what did you think? And she tells him, you're a real horse's patootie.
Again, I really wish that they just were able to use the word ass. There's something so poetic about being called and calling someone a horse's ass.
Yep. Well, we're still in that.
I know, it was the 70s.
That era.
It was 75.
They weren't going to say ass.
And I only found this out. I don't know if I've mentioned this on other episodes, but Gone with the Wind, there was a fine that who was it that had to pay it? I don't know if it was the studio that had to pay or Clark Gable had to pay for using the word damn.
Yeah.
There was a fine for it.
I know.
So, horse's patootie. Yes. So, Maude is like, oh my God, I just wanted my mother to like you. I wanted this to
love and respect
you. To love and respect you. And she calls you a horse's patootie.
Total disgrace.
Total disgrace, exactly.
Yeah.
And, Florence is like, nah, I didn't say that.
Right.
He may be a horse's patootie, but he's going to sell a million refrigerators.
And I love him for it.
And I love you for it.
That's right. And then I think that's where we had the break.
Yes, there was a break.
We had the break. So when we come back, Walter is
on the phone.
He's on the phone. He's laughing.
Yep. And he says, I thought I was mildly sensational too.
Yes. And he's like, Wowie Wally signing off.
6 calls in 5 minutes. I'm a hit. And he's so proud of himself. He's so proud of himself. And I think he turns to Maude and says, in spite of what you think of me, I'm a hit. And he goes into the kitchen. So, Maude and Florence are talking, and I have something about Florence saying, considering you were striking out 3 times.
Yes.
It was either Florence who said it, or it was Maude who said striking out 3 times.
I think it was Florence.
Obviously talking about Maude's previous
husbands,
relationships.
yes, that she finally has a hit after striking out.
There it is. Finally have a hit
times.
after striking out 3 times.
Striking out
That's
3
what it was.
times, yes.
So the phone rings, and, Maude's like, oh, will this phone ever stop ringing? Because, again, if it's not about Maude, it's not important.
I think she says, Mrs. Wowie Wally.
This is Wally Wally.
Mrs. Wowie Wally.
And it was Father Monahan.
Yes.
Calling for him to be the numbers
Wants
caller.
him to be the number caller at bingo.
At Tuckahoe Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that reminds me of the two of us.
What?
Just because that's all we do is we do bingo.
Bingo, I know. Yes. And
wouldn't it be something to have a priest reach out to the two of us to do Dorothy and Sophia bingo at church?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know how I would react.
I don't know.
So
Maude's mother, she says that, if it wasn't for bingo,
everyone would be atheists.
Everyone would be atheists, yes.
If it wasn't for bingo, everyone would be atheists. Because, up until recently, that was where bingo was played, in churches.
Yeah.
I never heard about there being an underground bingo game.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Underground bingo. Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Well, the funny thing is, in order to play like real bingo, where you have where you can win money, you have to have a bingo license because it's considered gambling.
Yes, it is. It is considered
and
gambling.
it's not cheap. It's not cheap. Like all the bingos we do, they can't be. They're not for money because you get in big trouble.
I have this image in my head of Edward G. Robinson pulling the bingo ball.
Yeah. G54. Yeah. See? Yeah. I-22. Now you better quack. Quack, 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 quack. Before the parade passes by. Yeah, see? Yeah.
Oh, my God almighty. It's Key Largo all over again. Somebody campier Key Largo, that's for damn sure. Wow. Underground bingo games. That's a good one. That's what Guys and Dolls was all about. It wasn't about a crap game. It was about bingo.
Yeah, see? Yeah. All right. So Mrs. Naugatuck remarks on Walter's legs.
Yes.
Yes.
She says, I didn't know you had legs like that.
And Walter's like, oh, thank you.
And, of course, Mrs. Naugatuck is like, I know, but it wasn't meant to be a compliment.
Arthur comes barging
storming in.
And he tells Walter, he says, I hope you were wearing shorts when you had that barrel on.
Yes, and of course Walter's like, well, what do you mean? And Arthur's like, well, if you have a barrel hole, the FCC is going to have your guts for garters.
A knot hole.
A knot hole. There was a knot hole.
Yes.
The FCC is going to be...
Yes.
The FCC is going to get you in big trouble.
You're going to be in big trouble. And then Florence comes out. Now's when she has that beautiful
that gorgeous caftan.
Orange tones.
Orange, peaches, pinks, reds. It was very attractive.
Apples, peaches, pumpkin pie.
When it's apple blossom time in Orange, New Jersey, we'll make a peach of a pear.
There you go. But yes, very, very lovely caftan she had on. And she's like, how do I look?
Yep.
And
I think Maude says, oh, Mother, you look lovely.
Right,
and I think she says, see, and you told me we weren't going to agree on anything.
I believe then she introduces her mother to Arthur.
Yep.
And they have a nice little exchange. And Arthur, of course, is like, oh, and you said she was hard to please.
Which, of course, Maude is like, I never said that, Mother.
So now he tells Walter he wants one of those great refrigerators. And that's when it comes out. Walter says, he only had 2.
There was only 2, and they were both sold.
They were a loss leader.
So tell the people what a lost leader is.
A lost leader is when, like, I don't know if they're allowed to do this anymore.
I don't think so.
I think they can get in big trouble. But at that time, what a company would do is like, we have this, this great product, and it's at this great price. Mm-hmm. And, you get there, and it's like, oh, we don't have any of them left. But we do have, this, or we have that, and that's what that's what a lost leader is. And that's what Walter did with the
refrigerators.
The Yoshimoto?
The Yoshimoto
refrigerator. Yeah. He only had 2.
Yep.
And they both sold right away.
Yep.
And so it was just a way to get people into the store.
That's right.
And Maude is not happy about that.
Yeah, because again, it's Maude is trying to be the liberal figurehead, and that's it's wrong. Mm-hmm. It is. It's ultimately it's wrong because it's what
fraudulent.
It's what Arthur called the old come on.
The old come on, yes. And he has a few analogies.
Analogies.
One of them we get is tempting
the carrot and the rabbit.
The carrot on the stick.
So and Maude's like, oh well, you're holding the carrot. The customer gets the stick.
Yes.
And then he decides to make it about God. Which the more I watch this show, the more I'm like, oh my God, our country is being run by Conrad Baines as Arthur Harmon.
Yes, so
our country is being run by Arthur Harmon.
He says the lost leader goes all the way back to Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Eve tempted Adam with the apple into the Garden of Eden, and the next thing he knew, he had a whole family.
Of course.
And Maude
but
says,
if you notice, it's not called Eve's apple. It's called
Adam's apple. Yes.
So what does that say, children?
And also, if you think about it, according to the Bible, since Eve was created from Adam's rib, wouldn't that make her transgender?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Things to ponder, children.
Think about that.
Things to ponder.
Yes. Oh, in Utah.
Oh, God.
Interestingly enough, they made this big thing about banning books.
Yeah. Well, it's in Florida. It's in Utah.
But somebody said, well, the way they have it worded and the law and everything, so somebody is making a complaint. Well, so we don't want anything with like incest and rape,
bestiality and rape
and sodomy. So he said, so we need to remove the Bible from the school because there's way more references to all of that than in any of these other books, and it has to be removed.
Yep.
Have you ever seen? I forget the guy's name on TikTok. But he's been calling. I guess he lives in Tennessee.
I know exactly who you're talking about. He lives in a southern place. He's calling up these establishments.
Yes, and he's like, I'm just a concerned citizen.
Yeah.
But like he called like a college's athletic department. He's like, now your cheerleaders, their uniforms, they could be considered purient and entertainment. So y'all are gonna have to change your cheerleader outfits. They're going to need to be long sleeve and down to skirts down to the floor.
Yep.
And if any he said, I don't want to see any of them arrested. And also, if you have any teams from out of state coming in dressed like that, they'll also have to be arrested. And like they're on the phone with them, and they're on the phone. That only applies to drag queens. No, that's not how the law is written. What's good for the goose
is good for the gander.
And it's like they think
hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy,
it really
and it's
is.
all about control. That's all these people want to do is control.
All they're doing is they want to find a way to attack the LGBTQIA+ community.
Yes.
And this is how they're trying to do it because the laws are written. The way they're written is very, very vague. Like Ben de la Creme was being interviewed by Al Franken. Al Franken. And, and Ben de la Creme said, this could be, it's so vague. Someone who's transgender could be walking to the grocery store and somebody could view them as dressing as the, opposite sex
And be
if
gunned
there's
down.
And if there's
It
a
was-
child anywhere, they could be arrested.
You know, years ago, there was a I'm trying to think of like I don't want to say that it was an excuse, but it was an excuse for killing black people, and it was existing while being black. That was an actual excuse, and I think the same thing happened to queer people during the 70s. Like during the 70s, blacks and the black community and the queer community was very vilified. I mean, how times have changed, and
there was
what the hell was it called?
Gay. It was like a gay fear.
It wasn't. It was a gay fear. There was a specific term for it, and I think it had the word "pink" in it.
Yeah, I can't remember now, but there was there was because I remember there was was it Ricky Lake? They had this this guy on who he was told he had a secret admirer, and it turned out he thought it was a woman. It turned out it was another guy. He ended up killing him, and and he was using that as was like his defense, gay outrage or something like that.
Something to that effect, because there was a similar phrase used for the black community where you would say, "Oh, well, they were black and I feared for my life," or "They were gay and I feared for my life."
Exactly. Yeah.
So I had to kill them.
Right.
And that was an excuse used by a lot of lawyers during the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're almost there again, kids. It's a little terrifying. It's a little terrifying.
It's ridiculous.
If I tell you, there are times when we go to that one establishment that I'm not going to advertise.
Yes.
Whenever we go there, I'm always afraid that there's going to be pickets there. I'm always afraid that there is going to be somebody out there picketing or somebody holding a gun and picketing, and it's just...
Fortunately, they don't have enough business.
They get enough business to get phone calls saying how they shouldn't have drag queens there. So...
yeah. Ridiculous.
So Arthur Harmon using religion to back his BS.
Yes. That's why the loss leader is an acceptable business practice.
Of course.
And Maude tells him that's the worst analogy
I've ever
heard.
And, he then says, well, what about Cleopatra and Mark Antony?
Right.
Or what about Napoleon and Josephine? Or who was the other one that he mentioned?
Oh, gosh, I don't remember. But he said something about, sex through the ages.
Well, Maude says, I wanted honesty and integrity, not sex through the ages.
Right. And at that point, Walter's like, oh, that reminded him.
He has a 62-year-old...
patient waiting for a vasectomy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which Arthur he wasn't a urologist or, he wouldn't be doing vasectomies.
I mean, during the 70s, if you were a surgeon... I would need to look it up, but I'm pretty sure.
I doubt it.
I also doubt it.
I doubt it.
But I would not be surprised if the word doctor/surgeon sort of encompassed the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then again, he could have been a doctor that was overseeing the procedure.
Maybe. It was just a way to make a joke.
Yeah, so a way to make a sex joke.
Arthur leaves,
and he calls. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Chadbourne, which is obviously not her name.
And Florence is like, he's a surgeon. I wouldn't trust him to take
out
out
my garbage. And Maude says, "See, that's something else we agree on."
Yes.
So then Walter comes out of his mouth and says, "Well, Maude, it was like when you and I were going out, when we were dating.
Yes.
You used your lobes as a lost leader."
Yeah, he would nibble her ear,
and Maude is just exasperated.
Yeah, and she would let him nibble his ear, and she
would giggle.
Like she liked it. And then as soon as they got married, that same night, he went to do it, and she was like,
shoot him away.
She didn't want him to nibble on her earlobes.
Yep.
He says, I think he called it a tender trap.
Yes.
And Maude's like, no, it wasn't a lost leader. She said, if I had offered 6 lobes and only gave you 2, that would make you a lost leader. Yes. And Florence is doing Yeah.
So at that point, Maude's like, Mother, if you have something to say, please say it. And she goes, okay. So it's just she's tisking all over the place and it's driving Maude absolutely insane. So Maude finally says, I've had it. I want you to say your piece as loudly as possible. And then Florence goes, okay. And again, it continues to aggravate Maude. And at that point now, Walter gets angry. Yes. He says, I'm going to go take a walk.
Yes.
So he gets up to leave. Does he say anything before he leaves the door?
I don't remember.
I don't remember him. I'm sure he did, but
yes.
I don't recall.
Yes.
But he was really hurt. He was really upset. He was like, you heard it in the way that he was acting that he felt hurt.
Yes.
So he goes to leave, and now it is mother-daughter time. And, Florence is like, he's a real go-getter. And Maude says, yes, with deceptive advertising.
Deceptive advertising, yes. And I think Florence tells Maude she needs to grow up.
Yep.
And that's the way it is.
Just like, it's just the way Walter Cronkite says. That's the way it is.
And Maude she's yelling that she's not going to fight. She promised herself that she wasn't going to fight with her mother, and her mother said she promised that she wasn't going to.
Florence, darling, you're not going to argue with that sweet little daughter of yours. Oh my God, that accent.
Yes.
It reminded me a little bit of oh God, what is her name? Marta. Walter's first wife.
Oh, yes.
Played by Carol Cook.
Yes.
Very similar in the way that she spoke.
Yes.
Very similar that she spoke. She actually passed recently.
Oh, did she?
Carol Cook, yeah. Oh. She was, I think, her and Joanne Worley are like the last two remaining, I guess, understudies for Carol Channing when she was in Hello, Dolly.
So, Florence is saying she wasn't going to promise she wasn't going to fight with her.
Yep.
Even like when she was at the airport.
And Maude is like, why do you keep on harping on that?
There were
25 mothers at that airport, and they were all picked up by 25 daughters. Neither of them mine.
Yes, and Maude is telling her, stop making me feel guilty.
And she's like, because I think Maude says, I guess you kept count. And Florence turns to Maude and goes, what else did I have to do? So at that point, I think Maude says, I'm sorry, Mother, again. And then Carol comes into the fray. And it becomes this sort of generational argument of, I literally have written down, I said, butt out Mother, butt out Maude, butt out Carol. Just everyone's being told to butt out and leave well enough alone.
Yes. Everyone is like telling each other to butt out.
Yep. Because Carol's saying, don't talk to your mother like that. Right. Florence is saying, don't talk to your daughter like that. Maude is saying, neither one of you talk to either one of yourselves like that.
Right. And Florence is saying, Carol is right.
Yep.
You're equals. You need to listen. Carol is saying she doesn't, need approval. She can speak her mind.
And I think at that point, Florence says, you have frustrations to Maude. And Maude sits back and says, what are my frustrations? And Florence says, your husband. If you loved him, you would stand beside him and guide him. And Maude says, like what, Mother? Through the night with the light from above? Obviously, an homage to that song.
And she's saying, no, like the way I stood behind your father. Although sometimes she had to bite her tongue.
Yep.
She still adored him.
Yep.
And Maude's like, oh, is that your definition of love?
Yes, my husband, right or wrong. And Florence is like, that's right. So Maude finally says, well, if that's how you feel, Mother, then you're a horse's patootie.
In which case, Florence says to Maude,
God will get you for that. And I think that was the only time God got Maude.
Yes. And Maude said she'll take her. She said,
I'll
take my chances.
And I think at that point, Florence like holds her shoulder, saying, "Oh, that's the first time you've turned on me."
Uh-huh.
And Maude's like, "I know, and I can't tell you how good it feels."
And they're all rubbing their
Carol's
neck and
rubbing her
shoulder
neck
at
and
this
shoulder.
point.
Maude is, and you know,
They've all given themselves the same
motheritis.
motheritis.
The same motheritis.
The same motheritis.
So you know, that was a whole sentence, kids. So you know,
So you know there you have it.
So Maude goes, "I'm sorry, Mother." Carol goes, "Mother," and Maude goes, "I'm sorry, Carol."
Right.
And then at that point, Walter comes in and goes,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Everyone's apologizing.
Everyone's apologizing.
Everyone can use a good dose of therapy.
And Walter, he's telling Maude that she was right. That he should, he was wrong about having that, that commercial with the loss leader, and he called the agency.
He called the agency to
and he
air
told them
his
to
second
use the other
commercial.
And it's just about to come on.
Mm-hmm.
How fortunate we all are.
Naturally.
So they all, they gather to watch the new commercial.
And it's Walter in an Abraham Lincoln costume.
Yes.
And he says, I'm the president.
Yes.
The president of Finley's Friendly Appliances.
Yes.
And just again going.
And he's doing that thing about you can
fool some of the people all of the time. You can fool all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. Who said that? Was that JFK? No.
Oh, I don't remember.
FDR?
I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember what president said that.
I don't remember.
Because I know a president did say it, I just can't remember which one. So
Maude is like, that does it!
Well, he also, at the end, he also said, God love you.
God love you, yes.
He said that God love you again
Yes.
with that weasel-like smile.
Mm-hmm.
And Maude again is incensed, saying, that's it! Somebody get me the yellow pages. And Walter's like, well, why? What do you want the yellow? Who do you want to call? And Maude screams, John Wilkes Booth! And they're all holding their shoulders in a really picturesque, beautifully framed moment for the show. Yes. It was cute.
It was a cute episode. Yeah, not like one of the best. I wouldn't even put it in like top 20.
Neither would I.
Absolutely
not.
It was a middling to fair episode.
Fair.
There could have been there was a lot of potential there.
There was so much potential.
The whole idea of Maude's mother, where, really what you wanted to see was somebody out-Mauding Maude at being Maude. That's, I think, what you really wanted to see, and you didn't get it.
It was lackluster.
You didn't get it.
It was very lackluster.
So,
I mean, when you had Maude and Archie in the same room,
mm-hmm.
the tension was electric.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you saw these two actors performing their craft as best as they possibly could. You had Carol O'Connor, just brilliantly browbeating Edith, and then you have Maude come in and browbeat Archie.
Exactly.
But there was no...
That was what you wanted to see.
I wanted someone to, come in, and not so much browbeat, but, sort of be Maude's better.
Yes.
Yeah. And it just goes to prove Maude is without equal.
Yeah. Very true.
Because the guilt that Maude is supposed to be feeling, I didn't feel why guilt.
she was getting the guilt.
I didn't feel it either.
I was like,
I noticed the resentment.
Yeah.
I noticed the very obvious resentment. And again, we're just two drag queens talking about actors. But, when I was watching Audrey and Bea interact with each other, it didn't feel like a mother-daughter
No.
relationship.
No.
Adrian and B,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
That was established from the jump. But it's interesting. The way we feel about Audrey and B is very similar to how B initially felt with Martha Cross, who was the original Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it was the two of them interacting with each other, it was loud and it was over the top.
Right.
And the producers wanted, I don't know, what was her name, Martha or Marcia Cross?
I think it was Marcia.
I think it's Marcia Cross.
Marcia
I'm so sorry.
Cross, yes.
So seeing that interaction, I was kind of hoping for like I don't even want to say like a cat fight or a battle, just someone to like throw it to Maude and Maude throw it back to them. And similar to how B and Conrad interacted with each other. During the first season, where it was very combative, it was very back and forth. This sort of felt
a little flat.
It fell flat.
It fell flat.
Certainly
Nowhere near as good as the mother-daughter relationship that we see in the Golden Girls.
Oh God, no.
With Dorothy and Sophia. I
mean, as cartoony as the relationship between Dorothy and Sophia is, you still see a loving mother and daughter relationship. Same thing with Maude and Carol, but with Florence and Maude, it just felt there was no oomph. Like there was no body to that relationship.
Which I guess is why they never had her back as mother.
Yeah. We'd mentioned before how Doris Roberts was originally going to be Vivian, but they didn't like Doris because it was Maude and Maude,
right?
Instead of Maude and Vivian.
Yeah, very true.
So,
c'est la vie.
Loving. C'est la vie. C'est la guerre.
C'est la drek.
C'est la drek. We thank you so much for listening, and we appreciate you.
We do.
Where can they find you?
They can find me everywhere. Toni Homeperm. And of course, now you can just go to Linktree.
She has a Linktree.
She has a Linktree. Just go to Linktree and look up Toni Homeperm. And of course, that's Toni
with an I.
With an I.
Toni with an I. Now that's linktr.ee/Toni Homeperm.
Is that it?
I think so.
Oh.
Because for me, it's linktr.ee/that Tomcat.
I don't know. I think if you just go to Linktree and you put in Toni Homeperm, I'll come up.
That also makes sense.
So, somehow.
Don't put in Tomcat, you'll go to Furries.
Oh, we don't
just
want
go to that Tomcat.
That Tomcat.
Not Tomcat.
So, yes, but yeah. Linktree for Toni Homeperm, it'll take you to everything, which is my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, even my Twitter. Not that I
TikTok
tweet
before Congress decides to ban it.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Nerds to that, friends.
But meanwhile, you use Facebook, and you look up like leather jackets, and then mysteriously, all in your feed is like 1 million ads for leather jackets, but they're not data mining or anything like that. But
TikTok is the problem.
But TikTok is a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Sure it is.
Sure, Jen.
Okay.
And you can find me at that Tomcat all over the joint.
But do they really want to?
God'll get you for that, Toni. We thank you so much for listening, and you will hear us next week on another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.